Hello, this is RV Vagabond Jerry, and this is my last video from Tennessee at the campground where I'm staying here just outside of Chattanooga. I have really enjoyed this adventure through Kentucky and Tennessee, especially doing it during the fall. Some very beautiful drives, very beautiful scenery, especially with the fall colors of the trees changing. I spent 6 weeks doing this adventure through Kentucky and Tennessee, and I made 40 videos, including this one, throughout Kentucky and Tennessee. Now, you may have noticed that I only made one video in Chattanooga, and that's because I came through Chattanooga in May of 2019 and made 5 videos there. I also did not go to Memphis at all in this trip, and that's because in May of 2018 I went through Memphis and I made 6 videos there. So if you want to see those, then go to my YouTube channel homepage, and there's 2 search boxes, one at the very top of the screen, which will search every channel on YouTube which you don't want. If you go down about 1/3 way down the page, you'll see another search box. You search on something there, it only searches on my channel. So if you type in Chattanooga, you'll see the other videos I made in Chattanooga. You type in Memphis to search, then you will find the 6 videos that I made in Memphis. And what I'm going to do now in this video is I'm going to go into my motorhome, pull up the map on my computer, and show you where I stayed every night throughout Kentucky and Tennessee. You might find this helpful for any traveling that you do in this area. And I have 1,500 watts of solar on my roof to keep my batteries charged, and since this is a cool time of the year, I didn't need electric hookups to use my air conditioner. So except for here and 2 other places, I did boondocking every night. So let's go into the computer and I'll show you where I stayed each night. So I started out at Louisville, Kentucky, and there I stayed at a Cabela's store. Nice thing about Cabela's is that they have spaces specifically for RVs. They have a dump station, and they never complain about people spending the night in their parking lot there. And then I went up to see Covington, Kentucky, and right across the river is Cincinnati, Ohio. So I stayed in Cincinnati at the FMCA campground. The Family Motor Coach Association, their international home office is in Cincinnati, and they have their own little campground there with hookups, and they let their members stay there up to 2 nights a month for free. I happened to get there at the end of September, so I stayed the last 2 nights of September, and I stayed the first 3 nights of October. So I stayed 5 nights, and for each additional night over the 2, they charge you $20 for. So I got 5 nights of hookup camping for $20. Hard to beat that deal. Then I went down to Williamstown, Kentucky, which is where the Noah's Ark is. And after I was finished with that, I pulled into a small shopping center where there was a Subway. I had dinner there, and I just stayed there the whole night. Small shopping centers, if they have a decent sized parking lot, is usually a good place to stay where nobody's going to bother you. Then I went down to Lexington, Kentucky, and I stayed at another Cabela's store there. Stayed there for 2 nights. And then I went down to Slade, which is where the Natural Bridge is, and other tourist attractions. And they have a visitor center there. And at the visitor center, they have some long parking spaces for trucks and RVs, so I spent the night there. Then the next day I went down to Corbin, Kentucky, and I stayed at the Walmart there. I spent 2 nights at the Walmart in Corbin, and then I made my way over to Horse Cave to see their cave and the Caverns Museum that they have. And I parked in a public parking lot right next door to the cave. Got there late in the day. I went in to see about tours the next morning, stayed there the whole night, and the next morning to do my tour I just walked across the street. The next day I went into Mammoth Cave National Park, which is right about there, outside of Cave City. About halfway between Cave City and the Mammoth National Park, I found a church on the side of the road, a pretty good sized church with a large parking lot. It was on a Friday night, so I just parked in their parking lot in the back of the church. There was nobody there at all. And then I went down to Bowling Green and stayed at a Walmart there. Then from Bowling Green, Kentucky, I went down to Nashville, Tennessee. And there I stayed at a Corps of Engineers campground right beside this lake. I stayed there for 5 nights with hookups. I could have done some more boondocking around the area, but when I stay several nights in one place, I don't like to move around a lot. So having one place to stay for 5 days was handy and at very low cost at COE campgrounds. So then I moved over to heading for Knoxville. I stopped at Cookeville at a Walmart there. And then when I went to Knoxville, I had a little trouble finding a place, but I just drove around and I found a vacant lot somewhere where it was like just out on the outskirts of town and nobody around. I knew nobody was going to care if I parked there, so I just parked in some random vacant lot I found in Knoxville. Then when I went down to Sevierville, another hard place to find boondocking, but I happened to come by a fairly good sized community college which had a really large parking lot. It was on a Sunday night, no cars around, so I just pulled in, picked me a spot, and I stayed there that night. And as long as places like this do not have parking lot security guards, then there's really nobody around to complain. Then when I went down to Pigeon Forge, which is another very hard place to find boondocking, about the only place you can in town is at the Cracker Barrel restaurant. So I stayed 3 nights at the Cracker Barrel restaurant in Pigeon Forge. However, I did not just stay there solid for 3 days and 3 nights. I left each morning to go out in my motorhome to go around seeing things, and then I would come back late that night just for the parking spot at Cracker Barrel. And as I normally do, in consideration of the kindness of Cracker Barrel, was to have 1 meal per day in their restaurant. And by the way, in cities like Pigeon Forge, for example, where there is a city ordinance banning overnight parking in store parking lots, Cracker Barrels generally have the attitude that we're going to be nice to our customers no matter what the city says. So you're much more likely to find overnight parking allowed at Cracker Barrel than you are at a Walmart. Then, when I was done there, I went through this Great Smoky Mountains National Park, which is this drive here. That took me into Cherokee, North Carolina. And there is a Harrah's Casino in Cherokee. And I parked in a parking lot right across the street from the casino. And there was about 15 RVs spending the night there at the casino. And then I moved on through here to Tellico Plains, and I stopped for lunch at a Mexican restaurant in Tellico Plains, which is a very tiny town. And right across the street from the Mexican restaurant was a vacant lot. So I parked there, had lunch, and just stayed in that vacant lot all night. Next day, I made the drive to Sparta, which is a fairly good-sized town. I spent 2 nights in the Walmart at Sparta while I was using my motor scooter to go around to see the things I wanted to see around Sparta. And then I came south to where I am right now at the Marion County Park. That's Jasper, Tennessee, and then this is the Chattanooga area. So when I'm looking for places to boondock, I look up places on my computer, official places where you're pretty much allowed to do it, but sometimes it's easier to just drive around and look for a vacant lot just anywhere where you don't think anybody's going to mind you being there. So that's what I do in some occasions when I can't find an official boondocking or lot docking spot in a city. And I generally like to stay in a city rather than just out in the boonies. So I hope that helps you, especially if you're going to be traveling in Kentucky, Tennessee. So you might be wondering, where is RV Vagabond Jerry going now? Well, from here, I'm going to be going directly south, all the way through Georgia, in Florida, and from there, I'll start my winter adventure, which I hope you will follow along with me as well. And let me know in the comments below if you would like to see more summary videos like this. Good day, folks.